what I'm about to go over with you guys is something that I just talked to our CEO group last week about because it's such a huge thing. And some of you guys have heard me talk about this, and I want to encourage you because originally I was going to split us up, and I'm like, you know what? Everyone needs to know how to do this, and like in their sleep. Like this just needs to become second nature, and not just for you guys to know how to do it, but also for you guys to be able to educate others on this and help them succeed at very high levels. Okay. And so I'm going to walk you guys through 5 steps. All right. And so this is something that I call difficult conversations made easy. It's something that goes right along with like conflict resolution. All right. Hold on one second because my aunt has disappeared. All right. So difficult conversations made simple. And this is under the umbrella of conflict resolution. Some people will share similar things, for conflict resolution, because it really comes down to communication, right? And effective communication. And a lot of people suck at that. I'm just going to be very blunt. Like it's awful. And I'm not talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds. I'm talking about 40, 50, 60-year-olds, okay, that I work with on a day-to-day basis as I'm consulting for other businesses, as I'm leading our CEO women's group, as I'm leading, and I'm just blown away at how much they don't know and how much that I had the opportunity to learn young, through not just through Cutco, but through the networking, right? The relationships I made in Cutco, the mentors I received in Cutco, and what I was taught that helped me since early on. And it's not something that's like perfect, that's for damn sure, but I'm aware, right? I can be intentional. And I'm pretty damn good at communication. And so even when sometimes I might blow up or get upset with something, right? I can go back and go, okay, you know what? I shouldn't have gotten upset. Like, what were you actually trying to say, or what were you doing? And be able to get to a place where we're feeling good. All right. And so I think about a lot of people when they have something to say, when something's bothering them, right? Especially when something's bothering, like there's so many people that are just scared of confrontation. All right. By the way, it's not a bad thing. It's just a normal human nature thing. Raise your hand if you're like, I don't really like confrontation. Raise your hand. Like it's most humans. All right. So cool, about half of you guys raise your hand. So most humans, I don't think anyone likes it. I'm not like, I love confrontation. I don't like it, but I'm not scared of it. Right. But some people are like, petrified. They will do anything they can to like not have to deal with like any issues or confrontation, whatever. And guys, that's awful. It's a horrible way to live your life. It might seem good at that moment, but you're doing a couple of things to yourself. One, you're not using your voice, and so like you're not actually sharing where you're at and how you're feeling, and like people don't know that around you, and so nothing can change, right? Like if someone's like bothered you, offended you, pissed you off, whatever it is, like if they have no idea, like they really might have no idea, and inside you're carrying this like frustration or resentment that starts building towards them, or just within you, right? And sometimes it'll come out later in other places that had nothing to do with that person, by the way, just because it's like these weeds inside of us that grow when we hold on to any negative emotions. Everyone got that? So negative emotions, negative thoughts, frustration, whatever it is, you don't want to leave any kind of negative energy living inside of you. All right. Easier said than done. Right. But what I'm about to go over is something that can really help move the needle forward when it comes to communication and helping you at least be in a place where you're not holding on to that stuff, where you're able to show up differently for your family, for your loved ones, for your community. And you're also able to facilitate space for others, because what I'm about to show you is something I've done so many times with other people that were having issues, that they were really upset, that they didn't like working together, that they were having issues with HR or with this or with that because of and like they're just so dumb, and I'll tell you guys right now, I've even heard some of my like family and family friends, and even this weekend, being around people, I hear them talking and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like I want to teach you this to make it better, because what people do is they get upset, they don't handle something, right? Because they don't want a confrontation, they don't want to fight or whatever it is, they don't deal with it. And then they go to other people and they're like, I can't believe this effing person. I can't believe they're doing, like, can you believe they did this? And here's what they said. And they're like so upset and frustrated and heated. And We don't want that. Okay. So five keys I'm going to give you guys real quick. Number one, remove fear. All right. Remove fear. So write this down. Fear, false expectations appearing real. All right. False expectations appearing real. I heard this in my first day of training in Kako. My manager had mentioned that. He said, fear is false expectations appearing real. All right. And so we create something in our heads, that doesn't even need to be there. All right. Thank you. Who is that for?
Shelby.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'll get it to her. So you have to remove the fear, right? Because you start creating, oh my God, they're going to get upset. Oh my God, we're getting into a fight. Oh my gosh. I just like, you create all this stuff that doesn't even exist because you're scared. All right. So remove the fear because and this is going to go to point number 2, where you're going in. And hopefully, if you're doing this properly, you're going in from a very positive place, even though it might be a negative situation. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? Like I'm not going in to like tear them down, right? And so number 2, write this down, identify the motive for the conversation, all right? Identify the motive for the conversation. So if I'm going in to have a conversation with someone, like some people will do it because they're, a leader or a manager somewhere, right? And you have to have this conversation because it's like part of your job. Some people will want to have the conversation because they have to show you that they're right. You're like, I got to show you, like, I'm right, you're wrong, right? Like, so we have to have, like, they want to have this conversation to make sure the other person understands that they were right. All right. Some people want to have the conversation to put them in their place, right? Like I've heard all these things when talking to people and coaching people. And that, by the way, guys, is never going to get you anywhere. Cool. It's just going to create a bigger fight. You guys, if you're talking down at someone, if you're putting someone in their place, if you're trying to show I'm right, you're wrong, all you're going to do is put fire, like logs on a fire, that creates more crap that you don't want. All right. We don't want to fan that flame. We don't want that growing. We want to mitigate. That's the whole objective of instead of ignoring the problem, addressing the problem, because we want the problem to be gone. We want things to be better. We want to do better. Okay. So are you coming from a place of love, of service, of growth, of connection? Like, what's your objective, right? It's like, I want to feel more connected. Maybe you're having an issue with your roommate, and it's like, you want to have a conversation just because you want to tell them what a bitch they are, excuse my language. Or you're like, I want to be like, I want to like enjoy living together. Like, I want to be able to like have more connection. I want to be able to get along. I want our experience to be heightened. Right. And like, I'm really excited about that. Right. Or maybe it's like with somebody like that you're dating, or maybe it's someone you work with and you're having an issue with something. All right. And you could fight just to fight because they're a dumbass and they piss you off, or you could really want to grow that relationship, right? Or grow that business, or grow that department. Like, there's growth focus. I'm like, I want to talk about this with you, Nadia, because I want to see us grow stronger. I want to see us be better. And I know that there's friction right now. We got into that argument the other day and it just didn't feel good, right? Or whatever it is. But are you coming from a place of connect, like wanting to connect, wanting to grow together, wanting to serve them or see them improve because you're approaching maybe to be in the middle of a conversation, like help people work through something. Or again, coming from a place of love, maybe with someone you care about, and you're like, this is just not how I want to be towards you, right? Like for me, I hate fighting with Spencer. I hate it with a passion. Like when he'll react or I'll react on something, I'm like, I'm so sorry. Or if he reacts, I'm like, what happened? Like, what did I do that pissed you off? Like we go through this process all the time. And he's like, nothing. I'm like, well, it's not nothing. Because if it was nothing, you wouldn't be upset right now, but he's the avoider. He hates having conversations because he grew up, like that you just ignore it and like forget it, it's gone, right? Like that's not true. It's not gone. All right. It might be gone in that moment, but that's not gone. And that's not how you want to live. And that's something that I know, and you could talk to him, he gets upset, but like he knows it's good for him, but he's like, because I won't let him not talk through it. I'm like, I need to know what upset you about this situation, because if I don't know what upset you, I can't change it. I can't be better. I can't guarantee I'm not going to piss you off again for the same thing because I didn't know what upset you. Right. And so we need to get to the root of it, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes, and really knowing what people need. Right. But you have to make sure that you know what it is that you want as the outcome. All right. And if you come from a place of wanting to be better, it has a chance of going going well, and make that known in the beginning of that conversation, like identify and say, hey, look, the reason I'm having this conversation with you, Jocelyn, is like, I freaking, love you. Maybe it's this to your lover or whoever. And it's like, and I hate when we fight and argue. I hate when we have this tension. I hate going about it. And I don't want that. I want to be better. I want to be stronger. I want to, and they're like, okay. And I'm like, so, how can we move forward in this? And so we go into point 3. All right. The third step, and this is something that I made up, but this is it. I've seen it over and over, and just the power of this. But the third is you have to remove the notion of being right. Everyone got that? Have to remove the notion of being right. All right. Again, that is hardwired in for us, that naturally as humans, like, it's like, well, like, you need to listen because like, I'm right? Like, get rid of right. Guess what? Everybody's right in the conversation. It might not feel like it, but everybody's right in the conversation because it's their reality. It's their truth. Does everyone understand this? Like, they really feel the way they feel for whatever reason. And we're going to dive into all the different reasons and what it could be in a minute. But guys, if you want to have a great conversation, all right, if you want to make a difficult conversation simple, stop trying to be right and start trying to see all perspectives. Cool. In the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to have Dan Cassetta teaching on emotional intelligence. And this is one of the most powerful tools for strong leaders, because part of emotional intelligence is being able to step out of a situation and look around to everyone and try to put yourself in all the other people's shoes that are a part of that, and be able to understand why they're feeling the way they are. Cool. That's not natural human nature. Natural human nature is selfish, right? Like, it's just how humans are. Like, it's about me. What's in it for me? What's this for me? Like, that's just natural human nature. And so to say, I wonder how they could be feeling. I wonder why they're feeling that way. I wonder why they think that. That's not normal human nature. Everyone got that? But it is a characteristic of the most incredible leaders that you will ever meet, is their emotional intelligence. And again, you're going to get specific coaching on that in the next couple of weeks. But part of that is you have to see perspectives. All right. And some of you have heard me share this, but I remember being at Landmark, and Sergio, I think we were talking about this because you and your mom had done Landmark. But when I went, they were talking about this and just being able to like stop fighting so much with people, right? Like, stop butting heads. Like, how can you have more camaraderie? How can you have more like things that are like in motion and like, like they flow together. Like, how can we have that? All right. And so this was something that they showed us. And so they took, I should have found a tissue box in this house, but they took a tissue box. All right. So everyone imagine a tissue box. You guys have all seen one before, right? All right. And so sometimes they have all the designs. So let's just say the outside's like pink and yellow and polka dots and whatever, like the box. You've got like white tissues coming out of it, or pink tissues, who cares? Colorful. All right. And on the bottom, if you look at the box and you turn the box upside down, on the square ones, a lot of times the bottom's white. Cool. In this case, it's not. That one's different. So, one of the tissue box that they used, the bottom of it was just like kind of white cardboard. They didn't spend money on like printing that side. And so it was just a box, yellow, whatever tissues, pink. And then on the bottom, it was just white cardboard. And so they took 2 people and put them in front of everyone. And they said, and they took, paper towel, like the end of the paper towel roll, right? Like a long roll. And they said, look through here. What do you see? And so you're looking at this image, right? And they had the box turned upside down for one person. They said, describe what you see. They said, it looks like white cardboard, some kind of a box, folded together, whatever, right? And they're like, all right, cool. Same thing. They had it placed. Someone was in a different angle, okay, on the other side. And they said, okay, look through here. What do you see? Describe. You say, I see a pink box with yellow dots. There's blank color tissues, And then the guy looks at the other guy and goes, wait a second, dude, are you colorblind? Like, are you blind? Like the guy who's facilitating this, he's like, I thought you said it was like a white cardboard box, like white, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, but you're saying it's pink with yellow and whatever. He's like, Like, who's blind here? Like, what's happening, right? And how many times have you had conversations or arguments with people and it's like, are you blind, or do you not see this, or how do you not understand this, right? And you get so frustrated. Has anyone ever had that happen, or am I the only person, right? But the fact is that it's different perspectives, and you're seeing it from different angles. And so sometimes when you're looking at it from another angle, it looks different. Everyone got that? And so one of them wasn't right and one of them wasn't wrong. They were both right, but they were looking at it from different places. Everyone understand this? And so that is a huge tool for you to be able to step away and go, okay, like, what are all the possible ways people could see this, view this, feel like, and be able to look at that, because it really makes a really big difference. But you have to get rid of who's right, who's wrong, and understand perspectives. Cool. Because that goes a long freaking way in the conversation. And number 4 is where I'm going to spend most of my time here. And then we'll wrap up. But number 4 is listen. All right. Listen to understand. All right. Write that down. Listen to understand. All right. What do I mean by this? A lot of times people listen to react. They listen to like then give their thought, right? Like they just like, they're listening to like be ready to like, nope, you're wrong with this, or no, right? Like they're like listening to like defend, right? Can I get a thumbs up if you guys know what I'm talking about, or if you've done this before? All right. So I'm listening to understand, not to react, not to set them straight, not to anything, but to understand what's actually happened. Let me break this down. All right. People have a need to feel heard, right? Like people want to be heard. Like if you have something that's on your heart, on your head, is frustrating. Like you want, like if you're trying to talk, you want someone to hear it. Okay. And so when something happens, all right, a lot of times when people get upset, all right, a lot of the conflict and like things that happen is the filters that people are taking stuff in through. All right. And the filters people take things are past experiences. All right. Almost everything that we react to in our current life is neurologically connected to a past experience. Cool. Like things that make us happy, things that make us sad, things that lift us up. Anyone here been in a bad mood? And then like the song comes on that like takes you back to whatever. And you're like, oh, hell yeah, this is my jam. And it like puts you in a good mood. Raise your hand if you guys know what I'm talking about. All right. Has anyone ever heard a song come on the radio and it does the opposite? You're like, turn that shit off. All right. I have like 3 of those from like exes. So like I have no desire to like be reminded of our times together. Okay. And so whether it's a song, whether it's a food, right? This weekend I tasted something. I had like a strawberry shortcake cupcake, at some place. But I took a bite of it and I was like, oh my God, I'm like, this is so familiar. And I was trying to figure out what it took me back to, but it was like such a happy memory, like such a happy flavor. Like it connected to something. I'm like, I can't put a finger on it, but like, this reminds me of something I used to eat as a kid, right? That's a connection, right? A smell. When I smell blueberry muffins cooking, I'm automatically like 8 years old at my great grandma's trailer, and she's making little Jiffy blueberry, like it's like the $1 at the store, but like the little Jiffy box of the blueberry mix that she always used to make us mini cupcakes. And when I smell that smell, I'm like, and like I'm back, I'm playing with the little AC vents on the floor of the trailer, and like that's like where I grew up. And like it's such a like happy like connection for me, but when I smell tequila, I want to throw up everywhere. I haven't drank tequila since I was 14. If I smell it, I want to puke on you. Okay. It has a very bad connection because I got completely drunk when I was 14 on tequila and threw up for hours and hours and hours. And like to this day, I am 39. I cannot smell tequila. Okay. So that has a bad connection for me. All right. So whether it's smell, it's sound, it's nonverbals, it's actual words, right? Like the word relax. I've gotten a lot better with it now, but like 5 years ago, and for the last couple decades, if you said relax, like it was literally like you throwing gas on a fire, like just like, here's a gas, like just by saying, hey, relax. I'm like, what? Like, it's like the worst word. And it wasn't like the notion of you saying like, hey, chill, calm down, like everything's gonna be okay or whatever. But like that word has a horrible connection for me and it triggers the shit out of me. Okay. And there's a lot more examples that I can give, but you guys get where I'm going here, right? And so when things happen, people connect it. And so maybe you looked at someone a certain way. And it wasn't even what you were saying or doing, but it was the look that you gave that took them to someone they had issues with in the past. And they're like, oh, you're like them, you fucker. And like that connected. And they're just like automatically like, let's fight, you know? And it was just like this look. And it's like, dude, that person could have had a resting bitch face. And like, it had nothing to do with like that old person that you had a fight with, you know, but like, you connected it to that, you know? And so now like there's issues there. I had an individual, you know, last year that someone said something, it was a strong tone. Cool. Like they didn't yell, but it was just like, yo, what are you doing? Like something like that. Right. And the person lost it. They were in tears. They were like, I can't work here. I can't work with this person. Like it was like huge. The person who yelled is like, yo, seriously? Like, I didn't even do anything. I'm like, well, apparently you did. They're like, I just said, like, what are you doing? Because like something was happening. Like we shouldn't have been doing that. I'm like, well, they don't want to work here anymore. Da, 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 da. And we had to sit down and talk through it. All right. And what we got to was that the tone and like whatever happened in that moment immediately connected that person to their stepfather, who was like not good. And like they wanted nothing to do with. And it was like a similar like tone, look, whatever. And it just really, you know, riled this person up. And as once we went through this process that I'm like going to walk you guys through right now, you know, like they got to a great place and they're like, oh, I didn't realize this. Oh, I didn't realize. And now the person who yelled knew, okay, I need to be more mindful with that because that's a trigger, you know, for her. And she was like, I need to be mindful with this because I know, you know, this, but it's that awareness, right? If you listen to understand what it is that's actually upsetting them, we can go further. All right. And guys, you can't be better. You can't do better, right? Like say someone you love and you piss them off all that, but you don't know why you piss them off. You can't like intentionally make better decisions to speak softer or slower or uplift them or whatever it is that they need if you don't know what upset them or what they need. All right. And so we need to make sure we type. So when you do this, all right, when you're going to listen, there's a couple rules for this. Okay. Number one person talks at a time. Cool. One person talks at a time. Like they get everything out they want to say. This is really hard. It is hard for me to do this. And I've been doing this for a long time and I have to shut my mouth and I'm like, all right. And what I've learned, this is the second tip I'll give you guys, take notes. Cool. While they talk, take notes. Why? Well, have you guys ever interrupted someone that was saying something? You're like, no, but da, 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 da. And it's like, they were wrong or whatever. And you didn't want to forget what you were thinking. And you just like start saying it while they're still talking. Has anyone ever done that? I sure as hell have a lot of times. All right. Guess what you just did? Piss them off even more. Cause now you're not even listening, you know? Cause now you're just like trying to say what you think. And you're not even listening to how they feel. Right. So I learned this the hard way. I pissed a lot of people off, by the way. All right. And I had to learn, okay, if I upset someone, I'm like, all right, what is it that upset you or whatever. And I sit and here's what you say. So I told you guys, one person goes at a time, write stuff down, always write stuff down. Why? Because I don't want you to forget. And if there's things you want to bring up or things you want to question or go, hey, why did you feel like this? Or I don't understand why you said that. Or I don't understand what I did to make you feel like this or whatever. Like you have it all down. You're not going to forget because maybe they talk for 30 minutes straight. You're not interrupting them. Okay. If you want to resolve this, you need to let them get everything out. All right. And that's the third thing. I would say, what else? Write that down. What else? All right. So one at a time, write stuff down. And then literally the phrase, what else? So as you're talking to me and you're saying, hey, this was upset and this, and you stop or you slow down, I'm like, Sergio, what else? And just stay quiet. And they're like, well, actually, and some more stuff will come out and you're like, okay. And by the way, I didn't say this. When you're going to conversation, tell them, say, hey, look, is it cool with you if I write down notes on things you say? Because I don't want to interrupt you. And I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Cool. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, again, like we told in the beginning, my goal in this conversation is to make us stronger, to make us better, to grow together, to whatever it is, they know that. And you're like, hey, I'd love to just like write stuff down so I don't interrupt you and just make sure I understand everything that, you know, I'm doing that's like really upsetting you right now. Cool. And they're like, all right. So you can write stuff down. So they can talk for as long as they want. You don't need to interrupt. You just need to write stuff down so that then when it's your turn, you can address the things they said and anything that you want to say about that thing. Okay. So what else? What else? What else? And eventually they're like, that's it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, cool. I'm like, is it cool if I share with you like my side of things? Or like, I'm like, first of all, I had no idea that this was upsetting you, and like I literally walked through all the crap they said, and it's like, oh my God, that was never my intention. When I was doing this, it was this or whatever. All right. But this is the fourth thing. This is part of these keys of just one person at a time, write stuff down as they talk, ask what else, what else, what else. All right. And the fourth, then once it's your turn, ask clarifying questions. Write that down. All right. Ask clarifying questions. So when you said this, Alessandra, is what you're saying this, or is this what upset you? Or is this what, like, here's what I understood when you said this. Is this what you were saying upset, like this was the issue, or was it this or whatever? Like, ask clarifying questions to make sure you really know what specifically upset them. Okay. And guys, again, this has to really, like, you have to separate, all right, the story. You have to separate the story of what happened from what actually happened. All right. I'm going to give you an example from somebody last week. Elaine was like, talking about how, oh my God, the person, like they can't do anything right. They're so responsible, all this stuff, They're like just super upset with things, like, they just like walked off and didn't get this done, whatever. When we get to it, what actually happened is the person didn't complete their report for the day. All right. And what we found out is that the guy wasn't sure exactly how to finish it up, but he wasn't able to communicate with her because she was always like, so like fiery and like, what do you mean? How come you can't know? Like, how do you not comprehend this or whatever? And so he felt dumb asking questions to make sure he understood it, and he wasn't doing it. And so we're like, oh, okay. So she realized, crap, like I need to tone down because I'm making people feel like they're like dumb or they should know this. That doesn't encourage them to ask questions to learn how to do it. And so he's frustrated as hell. I'm frustrated as hell because he's not getting his job done. He's hating me because I'm the worst boss ever that makes him feel like shit. And like, we're having issues, right? And so that's an example. But like, what is it? Like, people create a whole story. That one I was telling you about from last year. It's like, he's such a horrible person, like makes me, yells. And when we got to it, it was like, no, like what happened was he spoke to you in a tone that reminded you of your stepdad. That's what pissed you off, not the fact that he was asking. Because if he would have said the exact same things, all right, and said, hey, what's going on here? Versus, yo, what's going on here? But they just would have said like, oh, hey, what's going on here? Like, oh, this is going on and this is going on. Oh, okay, cool. Right. Like they would have known why people weren't getting their stuff done or whatever. Cause, oh, we were taking a break. We were playing a game or whatever. It's like, oh, cool. Right. There wouldn't have been an issue. And so the problem wasn't what the person said. The problem was how they delivered it. It was what they said. And I will tell you that the majority of problems in communication are not necessarily what you say. A lot of the time, it's the delivery. It's how you say it. Okay. And so that's something you want to be really mindful of. All right. And again, is it always perfect? No, I'm sure as hell not. All right. But it's something I'm like, oh crap, I'm aware of. And I'm like, all right, how do we get better? How do we get stronger? How do we set parameters so that we can have a difficult conversation and be able to grow? All right. But find that out, because sometimes we don't like the method, but it was actually a good intention. All right. And we need to separate the two things. And so that's what I've had to tell people before. I'm like, look, this is what they were trying to get done. They were trying to motivate you. They were trying to whatever, right? But the other person's like, well, they're an asshole. And like, they're like being really brash and really whatever. And because the method, the manager is really like trying to help them be better and trying to like motivate or push them to succeed, but their method doesn't roll with that person. Okay. And that's a whole other conversation. We'll talk about a different class about like, how do you motivate people and different types of people? And I know those of you who branched this summer, like you guys saw, like everyone's not the same, right? Like everyone's not self-motivated. Everyone's not motivated by similar things. And it's like, that's a whole other conversation. But some people, a simple thing is some people love competition. And they get motivated through like smack talk. They're like, yo, I'm gonna kick your butt, I'm gonna kick your butt. They get super motivated, they go out and they work harder. And some people shut down when you say that. And when they're like, I'm gonna kick her, and they're like, oh man, they just like shut down. And they're not motivated that way. They're motivated through being lifted up, right? So there's like the football coach style, and we'll talk about that, like I said, later this fall. But it's like the tough coach, come on, what the F, right? The football coach style, right? And people are like, come on, all right, like, and then there's the like helping people like feel enough and supported, and like when they're emotionally feeling good, they perform at a whole different level. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen region managers in our company F this up. I've seen division managers, my old DVMs, I had 3 different DVMs, do a very bad job trying to motivate me, actually 4 DVMs, and they all had different styles, right? One of them did a good job because he knew I was self-motivated, and all he had to do was say, hey, Kat, this is your best week last year. You think you could beat it? And I was like, true, let's go. Because I get most motivated beating my best. That's how I get the most motivated, is beating my best. I had a DVM go, oh, Jake's going to kick your ass. Da, da, da. And I looked at him and I just wanted to punch him in the face. I'm like, I don't give 2 shits, and it pissed me off more than anything. And it like did not motivate me to go work. It just made me angry, but not angry to action, just angry to like want to quit, so, but my other DVM knew, he's like, hey, Kat, you got this. You think you can beat it? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, let me go after it, and like, he just knew. And so you have to learn that. And that's all different. So anyway, we'll talk about that more later. But when you go through the process, again, you talk, all right? They talk, whoever's talking, you write. Then you ask clarifying questions before you react. And again, come from a place of like, I want growth, all right? Is putting someone down going to create that? No. So it's like, hey, what did you mean by this? Or what did you think this? Or what did I do in this specific instance that made you feel like that, right? And trying to figure that out because you want to be better. And if you need to, by the way, many times I have used a talking stick. The talking stick could be a stapler, all right? It could be a brush. It could be a pencil. It doesn't matter. But you're just like, this is a talking stick. Maybe it's a cell phone. I'm like, Mia, when you're holding this, you get to talk, all right? Jocelyn, you don't say shit when she's holding this. And then Mia, when you give it to Jocelyn gets to talk, and you don't say shit till she hands it back. All right. Whoever holds the stick, phone, whatever you want, all right, gets to talk, and the others get to listen. All right. So you have to just set those parameters, before you start that conversation. And by the way, sometimes some conversations, it goes one and then the other one goes, and then they go back, and then because they have stuff to say, right? And we're not going to do it in the middle of the conversation because it creates a fight. It's like, oh, okay, so help me to understand. Is this what you're, okay, cool. Well, hey, what I actually meant was that I'm so sorry that it rubbed you the wrong way, because that's not what I meant at all. Or I yelled because I just found out my grandfather passed away. This happened. My mom called me and I was just like in a panic. And then you called, I'm like, what? And I like yelled, like I just had all this other stuff going on. And you're like, oh shit, dude, I feel so bad. I'm so sorry. And it was like, it didn't have to do with you. It's like, they just got some bad news. And then you happen to be the next conversation and it got taken out on you or something, right? Like shit like that happens. And so again, we have to step back and really see what's going on. And the last thing, number 5, is thank them. All right. Thank them. Guys, you need to, at the end, appreciate them taking time to do that, right? Because like I said, it's not easy. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people to do that. But when you do it right at the end, everyone feels better. Like always. Like I don't think I've had one conversation in the last 20 years where we've gone through this process and at the end they didn't feel better. All right. Doesn't mean it fixed everything. No, but they felt better. They were like, oh, I'm so glad we had this. I'm so glad we did this. Right. So you at the end, being able to say, hey, Molly, like, I just want to thank you so much for being willing to have this conversation. Like, I was dreading it. I'm sure you were. Like, I know it's not fun, but like, like I said in the beginning, like, I want us to be stronger. Like, I want us to work better together. And like, I'm really glad that we got to like talk through this. And like, you helped me understand. Cause like, I didn't even realize that when I was doing that, like I was like upsetting you in that way. And like, I definitely don't want to do that, And so I just really appreciate it. And so appreciate them, for being courageous to like have that convo. And then the same thing, and it makes them feel really good. Cool. So those are my, 5 keys, 5 tips to making difficult conversations simple. All right. So real quick, I'm really glad that you said that, Zavi. All right. And for those listening to replay, Zavi just mentioned that when you're a smart, like it's so hard sometimes to like shut it, or like not try to be right when you're right, or you are the more intelligent person, or like you are the person who's right, like they were wrong, right? but that's not how we work in leadership. Your job as the leader, Zavi, knowing that you're right, knowing that you're the smart one, knowing that you know where it needs to go, you have the hopefully emotional intelligence and intentionality to go, okay, how can I help them? How can I guide them to understand this? And so your job is to shed light on the situation and help them see it from the other perspective that they might not be seeing. And it's like, hey, have you thought about this? Or have you considered? You could write that down. It's a great phrase. But have you considered that maybe, when they did this, they were trying to do this? Or have you thought about this? And so your job now as the leader, whether it's as a parent or, again, in work, whatever the heck you're doing, is to help guide that person to understand the different angles. And then they go, oh, I didn't think about it like that. And I'm like, so I understand how you'd feel the way you do, because if I was looking at it from that point, I'd probably feel that way too, but I just wanted to talk through this because, sometimes, as humans, it's hard to get out of our lens and put on other people's lens. But the fact is, if I was wearing blue glasses and I looked out, I'd probably see things in more of a blue shade, right? If you had green glasses, you would see things more of a green shade. And so it depends what lens we put on, what we see the world through. And so that's really important. And that's something you learn in effective communication. So awesome. And Alexis, I love that. Because again, as they, share stuff and naturally you want to go, oh, but this is, or whatever. Now it's like, you're listening and you're like, oh, okay. Be like, and be like, help me to understand, like, what made you feel that way? Right. And like, you're wanting to actually see, and you're like, oh my gosh, I definitely did not have that intention when I said that or did that, and they're like, oh, like, and that's where, again, you can get somewhere, because when you're like, no, but no, but now walls come up and it's just an argument, right? Where if you try to understand why they feel the way they do, it's a whole different conversation. All right. And you're able to strengthen those relationships versus hurt them. So that's really